Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wisdom from North, the place where we're diving into the deeper meaning of life and asking the big questions. My name is Janneke, and today I'm here with Christian Darling. He is a medical doctor, and he's very passionate about raw food and food as medicine, and how food can even cure perhaps diseases like cancer and diabetes. And he is conducting several courses with his colleague Magnus Angeltveit Kjørlen, where they have courses in detoxification and raw food and food as medicine and even raw chocolate, which sounds really delicious. And today we will be speaking about how changing our diet can perhaps change our lives. Welcome, Christian. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So I actually went to a course that you did the other day. That was very exciting to see how we can really learn to use more of just raw food in our diet, which is new to very many people. But I'm very curious about how you got into this. Why are you so passionate? Like, if you can tell us actually your story, how it all started with you finding this interest in raw food.
Well, I always had a big interest for nutrition growing up. As I later learned, I was quite intolerant to both gluten and milk. So growing up, I was quite overweight, and this always bothered me. So I was always interested in nutrition and how to optimize my diet, as I was training a lot. But even though I was exercising quite a lot for my age, I was still quite overweight. So I never quite put it all together. But the main event that kind of led me into the path of raw living foods as not only as a lifestyle but more like a nutritional therapy as a medicine itself was actually the loss of my father. I lost my father in cancer 9 years ago, and in this period I was in the middle of my internship, and when my father struck by lightning, as we say, suddenly got very sick with a serious diagnosis. I was very, very astonished and in a way surprised that modern medicine didn't really have anything to offer him in this situation. And since he was only sick for 7 weeks, and as I said, being in the middle of my internship, working in the hospital as a newly educated doctor, I was very frustrated with this, and I had a hard time accepting everything that happened, and I started asking many questions to myself. What is really cancer? Can it be? Is it possible to treat it? Is it possible to prevent it? How can it be prevented? And I started entering all this. How do you say? All this field of complementary knowledge. Compared to the modern medicine I'd been studying for the last year, I entered a completely new world, and quite quickly realized if you start looking into what doctors would call anecdotal evidence or case stories of people, I quite quickly realized that one of the factors that would always or very often would be present was the change of diet and lifestyle in order to reverse serious disease. So I guess the main event that has inspired me to go the direction I did must be the period when my father was sick.
So can you tell us about what raw food is? Because that's probably something we've heard of, but not everybody understands what it is and how it works.
I mean, if you just look at a normal salad bowl, that's an example of raw food. But within the raw food concept, where we talk more about nutritional therapy and medicinal properties of the food, it's not only enough for the food to be raw, it should be vital as well. So one example is to keep the food as vital and bursting with life as possible. Normally sprouts would be a better option than the actual vegetables, because all vegetables, they start out as a small sprout, and then if you let them grow, they will grow into a vegetable. But the sprouts have a much higher content of enzymes and oxygen, for instance, which is important parts to cleanse and rejuvenate the intestinal tract.
Yeah, because I remember that made an impression on me in the course that I was at, that these sprouts were so full of vitamins, and much more than vegetables. And vegetables was kind of, you know, in the hierarchy, like low below.
Yeah.
So basically, we could just buy sprouts in the store and eat. We don't need to eat a lot.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
It's a very efficient superfood that you can add into anything and improve your digestion quite easily. Yeah. So sprouts is, in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful so-called superfoods you can eat.
Okay. Yeah. And what about this, that you have to heat it not over 42%? Why, or 42 degrees?
Yes, 42 degrees.
Why is that?
I mean, it's due to what happens to proteins when they are heated more than 40 something degrees Celsius. And you will actually coagulate the enzymes or the protein component of the food, and when this afterwards enters the intestinal tract, it might cause the immune system to react to it by causing leukocytosis, which is actually what you could call an activation of the immune system. So if you look at this reaction, I would say our body is not fully adapted to only consume cooked foods.
Okay.
I always say it's the same mechanism that drives our immune system into fever if we have an intruder coming into our system. If a virus or a bacteria or a parasite or something we consider an intruder to our system enters our system, the first thing the immune system will do is to raise the temperature as a fever in order to try to cook the invader, the intruder. And if we can achieve, only if you look at babies' fever, they have quite high fever for a short time and then it's back to normal balance. I would say this is an effective fever, because if you can keep the temperature high for a short while, you will actually, coagulate the protein part in the virus or the bacteria or the parasite, and it's actually a successful form of protecting the system. And it's the same thing that happens with food. When we cook the protein part in food, our immune system will attack it. So it's not always the best option to, in my opinion, to eat exclusively cooked or baked or deep fried food.
Yes, you're saying not always, but it doesn't mean that we have to end it all together. Like, I'm just wondering if we... Not saying that we have to do anything, but it's the best thing for human beings to just be on raw food, or can we just have a mixture, of just eating more sprouts and then...
I mean, it depends. I mean, the basic question you have to ask yourself is who you are and what you want to achieve. And even more important, do you have a medical problem you're trying to deal with? Because it all depends on the perspective, on where you stand and where you want to go. I mean, ideally, there's no problem in thriving on a 100% raw food diet. That doesn't mean you have to stick to it 100% either to gain some of the health benefits from including elements from it. I normally recommend most people to try to at least have a 70 or 80% component of raw vital foods, and then leave the last 20% up to people to decide themselves. There's depending on what we try to achieve.
Yeah, because you said that if you have that percentage, that those other 30 or 20% won't matter that much, because if you do this 5 days a week, then you can relax a little bit and enjoy yourself with the old stuff in the weekend.
Probably you can, yeah. The old saying that it doesn't really matter what you eat between Christmas and New Year's Eve, but between New Year's Eve and Christmas, there is something to it. Of course, we can go crazy sometimes and not destroy everything we did before.
Right.
Yeah.
So, is it difficult to have this lifestyle, or to find these kinds of foods and prepare food? I mean, do you really have to change a lot in your life? I'm just thinking for myself, if I would be able to do this, like, can you tell us a little bit about where one can start if one wants to change to more raw food?
I mean, I would say our classes and courses would be a good place to start, because in the end, if you want to enter this, you need to learn how to do it. You need to be able to prepare your breakfast and your lunch and your dinner with foods that are as tasty and desirable as what you're used to eating.
Right.
Because if you sit down with something that you don't really fancy, you don't really feel that it has the best taste, you don't really feel that it's fulfilling food, you will always think about something else. You will always think that this is a diet for a period of time, and then go back to your old habits. So if we really are to make this changes into a different lifestyle, we need to put time into the kitchen, and learn about the different flavors and the herbs and the whole, how do you call it, the whole nature's pharmacy, how to put it all together.
So how has this changed your life and your health?
It has, well, one of the first things I noticed in regards to my own health was that after when I finished my internship, I was quite heavily tormented by allergy for 2 months a year, and I was using all kinds of different allergy medicines to keep the symptoms away, but I never really felt this was helping me enough. It gave me relief from some of the symptoms, but it also gave me a fatigue that didn't really make me function at my highest potential. One of the first things I noticed after changing my diet was that I didn't need these kinds of medication the following year. When the pollen was in the air everywhere, I didn't notice anything. I had no coughing, I had no sneezing, I had no sore eyes, and I felt the change immediately. And I feel.
Was that 100% raw food diet, or was it?
When I first went into this, it was 100% raw food diet, and I can actually, if I don't pay attention to my diet, if let's say for some, if in the pollen, when there's a lot of pollen in the air, if I would only have a 50 or 60% raw diet, I would feel some of the symptoms coming back. If I increase the raw vital component to 70 or 80%, it's enough to, for me it was enough to keep them all at distance.
Yeah. Yes. What about other things like energy or skin or
I mean,
immune system?
Energy is completely different. Looking back to not only my childhood, but to my whole adolescence period, and even in high school and the military, even the first years in med school, my energy level was very low. I was always tired. I was always falling asleep many places. So my energy was definitely not the best. And after changing the diet into a raw living foods diet, it's completely changed. I feel I have more energy than most people most of the day, and I probably sleep a lot less now than I used to do growing up. Yeah.
Do you see this with patients and people that go to your courses as well?
Yeah. That's quite a common thing to experience. To have more stable energy, people sleep better. They feel more awake when they are awake. They feel more vibrant and energetic. Definitely.
So, what about breakfast? Because I heard in an interview that you did that breakfast is not that good, and I love my breakfast.
Well, like you say, breakfast is no good. I mean, if you look at the words that breakfast is consisting of, it's break fast. So breakfast actually means to break the fast. When we get up and eat, we break the fast. Because when we are sleeping, we are naturally fasting. Oh. So my whole point is not to break the fast immediately after getting up.
Okay.
Instead, we should postpone it as long as possible. So I say it's a much better idea to start the day with filtered water and a fresh lemon squeezed into it, or even a green juice, for instance, made with sprouts and cucumber, or something that will help to rehydrate your system and actually prolong the fasting period, so you help your body to eliminate all the toxins that was prepared during your sleep. So that's my whole point, not necessarily to skip breakfast, but to postpone it as long as possible. It's much better to start with, like I said, a green juice.
So is it enough food in a way? I mean, do you get full with raw food? Because, I don't eat a lot of meat, but I can imagine many men perhaps just love their meat, meatloaf.
I feel fully full and content eating raw food. I often say that most people have a diet compromising their intestinal tract in such a way that they don't know how to differentiate the feeling between feeling full and feeling bloated. Oh. Many times we eat food that we feel full. We feel like the intestinal tract is like bloated in a way. So it's like, oh, I'm so tired, we have to lay down. That's not the same as being satisfied or being full. That's one of the first things many people notice eating more raw and living foods, is the fact that they eat less because they feel fully satisfied from less amount of food, because the nutritional content is much higher.
So, I can assume that many are thinking, do I get enough vitamins if I just do raw food? Like proteins, for example. I know we get this question a lot.
I mean, the protein myth is, in my opinion, it's so funny. It's so funny that people worry about getting enough proteins. Lack of proteins is a very rare deficiency. Very, very rare. I always answer that question by asking, do you think the gorilla is lacking proteins? Or do you think the chimpanzee is lacking proteins?
Because they eat, what do they eat?
They eat a vegan diet. There's no lack of proteins in their diets. I always say that if you eat enough good quality raw vital foods, you will get more than plenty of protein. More than plenty. In reality, if you compare the amount of proteins in 100 calories of beef or 100 calories of broccoli, you would find more protein in the 100 calories of broccoli. So yeah, I think it's a myth that you need to have animal produce to get enough protein.
But do you think we on some level too need some animal food, because we've been used to it for so long now that sometimes we can crave it? I don't know if but because I've heard people say that, I was in a period of my life where I really needed to eat meat.
From a nutritional point of view, I would say the answer is no. You don't need meat. from an emotional part of view, you could say yes. If you crave meat, well, go and have your meat. But be honest how your body responds and reacts afterwards. If eating meat makes you happy, I'm not going to judge you. But from a nutritional point of view, there's no need to eat dead animals, I think.
Yeah. And the thing is that I've heard that has made me a little bit conscious about when I eat meat, is that you don't know how that cow, for instance, was treated.
Yeah.
How the emotional state of that cow was, because everything is connected, I believe. I mean, yeah.
that's a good point. That's an interesting point of view. If you look at for instance, old scriptures from Buddhist tradition, the Buddhists said 2,000 years ago, if you basically directly interpret it, they said if you kill an animal, the animal will be sad. And if you eat that animal, you will be sad too. And if you think of it like you said, when we slaughter an animal, you can only imagine all the stress hormones pumping out in the system. And when we later on eat this meat full of adrenal stress, it's no wonder to think that this can affect our emotional state as well. So that's also one thing that many patients and clients report back to me, that once they eliminate meat and animal products completely from their diet, they feel much more at peace, they feel much calmer, they feel more focused, they have an overall, my impression, a better feeling inside. And interestingly enough, because there's always somebody who after being vegan, if they did that for 2 or 3 or 5 months, there's always somebody who they ask me, oh, do you think I can have some meat again because I'm going to this wedding or I'm going to this thing and everybody will think I'm strange if I don't eat it. And I always say that's completely up to you, that's your choice. But always be honest with how you feel. And strangely enough, many people report back to me that after they stayed vegan for a long time and then try to reintroduce meat or animal products of some kind, the first response is actually they feel anxious.
Oh.
They very often report, yes, I had the meat, but I felt so bad. I was anxious all day. And that's quite interesting, I think.
So what about milk? Because in Norway we drink a lot of milk, and the cafe culture, coffee latte, cappuccino, all these things. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, we heard that in the newspapers and media that milk was supposed to be drank by cows and not humans.
Yeah, I mean, that's common knowledge that cow's milk is for the cow's calf. If we humans are to utilize a milk from another animal, I think we should first start by examining mother's milk, our own species breast milk, and see, can we find some animals that produces a milk that is similar to ours? We can.
Okay.
For instance, goat's milk is very similar to our breast milk.
Okay.
So if we are to utilize the milk of an animal to make cheese or dairy or this kind of produce, we should look into, for instance, goat's milk. Cow's milk, on the other hand, has, I would say, nothing similar to mother's milk. So I consider cow's milk to be quite toxic for human consumption. And there's plenty of studies backing this. They have been on the table since the early 50s. It's not even what I will call an alternative opinion. Even we have nutritional professors even here in the medicinal faculty and the main national hospital saying the same. And they have been stating this for 20 or 30 years, that cow's milk is not the best thing for human consumption.
What does it do to me? Like, I drink a coffee latte and I try to stay to one each day, not 2 or 3.
I mean, one of the effects that cow's milk will have on the system is that it's very mucus forming. So it forms a lot of mucus in the respiratory tract or even in the intestinal tract, and this is not positive for the system. Probably the most dangerous thing with cow's milk is the protein component, casein,
Okay.
which is considered to be a highly cancer-causing agent and an inflammatory-causing agent. So by adding cow's milk into your system on a regular basis, I would say on a long-term basis, you're building inflammation, which in my opinion is no good.
And the soya milk, I don't know what it's called in English.
I mean, I'm no fan of the soy milk either, to be honest with you. I'm very skeptical to GMO products, and in a situation where it's been estimated that more than 90% of global soy production is GMO soy, I think it's too risky to even think of having an organic soy milk or something. And then also you have the element of a high content of phytoestrogens, which definitely no man needs more estrogen, and in today's Western society I don't think women need more estrogen either. They should probably, if they need something, it would be the other way around, needing more progesterone.
So have you seen like results of people who perhaps have had cancer or diabetes or other diseases that by changing their diets that the diseases have been reversed or disappeared?
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
There's plenty of what modern medicine will call anecdotal stories of people changing their diet or doing different things and healing serious diseases. Anything from cancer to diabetes to hypertension to... There's anecdotal stories like this popping up everywhere, I would say. And it would be ignorant and stupid just to ignore them all. And I've seen... Personally, I've seen many different diseases reverse through dietary changes. It's not always one will succeed, of course. It all depends on where you start.
And how dedicated you are.
Of course. You need to be dedicated, of course.
Yeah, it's kind of a responsibility then that, I mean, if I get this disease, I can't just... get treatment, I have to change something in my life.
Yeah, I think that's not a mandatory choice, but a better choice than not doing anything. Because I mean, like many people have said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So if you had, let's say you had a lifestyle for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and you end up with something. If you don't change anything in your dietary and do some dietary changes or lifestyle changes, there shouldn't be no surprise that you might end up with the same symptoms or same problem 5 or 10 or 15 years later down the road as well. So I think it's really important to also to regain some of the responsibility and involvement on a personal level in a situation of disease instead of just receiving treatment. You need to put, I think we all need to put something on the table in regards of dedication and responsibility as well.
So is this coming into school medicine and in hospitals? Like this awareness of food and how beneficial it is, or is it? But because raw food to me is quite new. Like I heard about it like a few years ago. We've always heard about vegan food, but not raw food.
Yeah, it's kind of strange actually that mainstream society has. I would say have drifted so far away from our roots, our biological and evolutionary roots. Because if you talk to evolutionary biologists, most of them would say that our closest family nature is not the lion, it's not the tiger, It's not the puma. Our closest family is the chimpanzee, the gorilla, and the orangutan. What are they eating? They are only consuming raw foods. All the animals on this planet, they're all consuming raw foods. We are actually the only, we are the only animal cooking our foods. The only one. And we're the only animal having the health challenges we are facing at the moment. I think that might be one of the reasons that many people think that modern medicine is, in a way, is heading into a crisis in regards of many people losing faith in modern medicine.
Oh.
I think one of the reasons this is the fact that we are using an acute form of medicine, an emergency medicine, to try to treat long-term, long-term and chronic diseases caused by dietary changes and lifestyle. And it's not working.
Yeah, I guess it's an awareness that we, in a way, need to do something ourselves, that we can't just go to the doctor and be fixed through, from my opinion, through a pill or just a quick fix, that we actually need to look at ourselves and change, maybe if it's our way of thinking or our way of eating, and it's all connected. And that that demands something of me, but I have the power, I think, to change a lot.
Exactly.
Not saying that I think if I get cancer that was because I did something wrong. Like, I think there's also this other perspective that
of course.
There can be destiny, who knows, but that I can participate in my own healing.
Yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I think it's you have to participate in order to achieve true healing.
It was a pleasure having you here. Is there anything you want to say in the end?
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Lovely having you here, and we're going to do an interview in Norwegian as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, guys, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you haven't before, and you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well. Much light. Bye-bye.